Within a year, most of these capabilities are probably going to be standard across all of the major platforms. That's why we built this series around principles instead of features. Hi there, Kelsey Toner here, the founder of Guest Focused Tour Business Coaching, where every day myself and our team of incredible tour and activity business mentors are helping you build a thriving, profitable tour business. Welcome back to our series on putting AI to work for you and your team. Now, if you are just jumping in at this point, we highly recommend going back and watching the whole series as we walk you through how to build an AI brain. We even provided a tool to help you do that. We explained some important concepts like having memory, like having connectors or a nervous system, like skills and plugins and agents. Now, we want to bring things all together in this video and do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you a little bit more behind the scenes of what our AI brain actually looks like after several months of daily use. I'm going to be honest about what's working for us, what's still hard, and I'm going to share where I think a lot of this is heading because the pace of change is real and that matters a lot. It also matters a lot to the way that we constructed this series. So if you've been following along and implementing as we went, you should now have a folder that lives on your computer that has a series of markdown files that act as the AI brain. We have an instructions file. If you're using Claude Cowork, that is called Claude MD. And any time before it does anything, it's going to check in with that instructions file. And that instruction file is going to say, hey, don't forget about all of these other markdown files. This is going to give you the context you need to help you get done what you need to get done. Now, we also built in the self-correction loop and showed you how with Claude Cowork, how those corrections get written back to the actual files themselves. That loop is what makes this whole system work. Your AI reads those files, you can correct it, you can update those files, and the next conversation, all of that correction sticks. Same thing applies to skills and processes that you create. Anytime you use that skill, now using a tool like Claude Cowork, you can get it to update and iterate each time you use it. And I just want to let you know that our brand voice document started with maybe 10, 15 lines, but a month later, we've added all kinds of additional preferences. We've indicated more and more, hey, don't use these types of words. Hey, don't use those M dashes. Hey, I noticed you do a lot of hyperbole. Let's cut back on that hyperbole. Maybe sign off my emails in a particular way. All of these corrections compound over time, and you can see those updates right there in the file. As I mentioned, our team file grew the same way. It started with just the names and roles of some of the contractors that we use, and initially I didn't have all of our coaches in there, but now it has every single coach. It pulled in their profile. It has their LinkedIn. It has links to the YouTube if we did an interview with that particular coach, and it also pulls all kinds of other contacts in. I didn't have that at the beginning, but when I encountered a task or a project where I was like, oh, I would love to have that context, I would not necessarily upload it, but because I had those connectors set up, because it had that nervous system, it got easier and easier. So updating your AI brain becomes as simple as, oh, can you go and get that information? Here's where it is. Right? Sometimes I'm not even giving it a Google Drive link or even the name of a document. Sometimes I'm just describing it in natural language. Hey, you should be able to find our cash flow document. It's in Google Drive, and I want you to pull that in because we're going to do some cash flow work. Right? That may not have been in the AI brain before, but it updated its memory, and now it has that. So just to show you where this lives, this is basically just a folder on my desktop. My Claude Cowork synced folder is essentially my AI brain. And if you want some extra points, or we mentioned this in an earlier video, note that I actually have this one folder actually syncing into my Google Drive. Now, you can use any kind of backup, but in my mind, we're putting a lot of work into this brain, and we want to make sure that if anything happened to this device, this computer, I'm not going to lose it. It also opens up a couple creative workflows that I can tell you about a little bit later in this video. But as you can see here, if we go down into memory, you can see some of the context that we've added over the last few months. This YouTube index was not something that I even initially thought of, but then I thought, well, how cool would it be if we could easily reference one of our free YouTube training videos. We didn't have a centralized database where it said like, hey, here's the video topic, here's a short description, and here's a direct link to it on YouTube. And so I asked Claude Cowork to go and do that and add it into our memory. And again, if you open it up, it's simply a list of, hey, here's your playlists, here's the title of the video, and here's the YouTube link. As I mentioned before, as your brain grows, we highly recommend using a tool like Obsidian to more easily have a look at your AI brain and what's in there. This is that same AI brain folder, but here's what these markdown files now look like in Obsidian. Right? So I can go back into some of this content. So now when I click this YouTube index, I can see that markdown file. It's a lot prettier. You can see the hyperlinks in here. And like I was saying before, I can easily edit my brain inside of something like Obsidian. So I really enjoy this free tool. You don't need to pay for any of the features with Obsidian. I just wanted to show how this evolved over time. I just wanted to share a few more examples of context that we've added to our memory over time. Here's kind of the brand script or the story that we have for our clients, right? Hey, we're a tour activity experience business owner who wants to grow their revenue, keep more profit, and build a business that doesn't depend entirely on them. Has a problem. Villain is isolation. They're building something meaningful alone, often without a roadmap, without mentors who understand the industry, without anyone to tell them or help them on what to focus next. You can see that brand script is in there, and that provides insight into a lot of our copywriting. We have information about our business entity. Oh, this was a cool one. This is client language, where we pulled the exact language that our clients were using from member profile surveys. So anytime we work with somebody, we sent out surveys to our audience. And this is the exact language that our clients were sharing. I bet if you read through these, you're gonna see some of these challenges, right? I do everything. I'm feeling burnt out, exhausted, tired of being a one-man band, making it less dependent on my wife and I. We can't get time off, not having anyone to ask questions, doing it all myself, handling the growth, too busy to work on the business. This is exact language that our clients have used. Can you see how powerful having this context in our AI brain is? And you know what? It didn't start with that. This didn't come till month 2 or month 3 when I realized, whoa, we got to get our client language in here so that we can use it when we're doing our marketing skills and our marketing tasks. Something that worked really well for us is I had a bunch of sales call notes inside of Apple Notes. And I basically exported all of those sales call notes or some of the strategy call notes that I've had over the past year into markdown files. And I actually just moved it over into the brain. That allowed me to set up a pretty complex task, which was, hey, go through my Calendly account and let's have a look at anyone that's booked a strategy call over the last 12 months, but who hasn't moved forward and enrolled in the coaching program. Now, that's pulling information from 3 or 4 different places. I didn't even tell it where because my AI brain already knew and was already trained, hey, this is where we can get all of that information, right? So even that alone, you don't have to break this all down into steps. I simply give it the goal, and with the context and its connectors, it will assemble all this together. So goes to Calendly, pulls all of those strategy calls. It pulls from, hey, which of these folks have moved forward and become clients? Okay, now pull from all of those notes that I had from the calls that I led, and I want you to connect them up. Now I want you to draft an outreach email to them, just checking in, just circling back to see if now's a better time, because a lot of folks, it was just a timing issue, or hey, we'd love to join, but in the future. Again, that manual follow-up work, what I just described there is easily hours and hours of work. It was able to do that and draft the email based on context from the actual notes. Like, hey, here's the business. Here's some of the main challenges they shared with you. Let's write a personalized email. And it was able to put that right in my Gmail drafts folder. So then I could go through, read through, and send those emails one by one. I even set up a task for something else where it was an unrelated task, but I actually had it send off those 30 emails. We did 1 or 2 together, I approved them, and then I had to take the girls to swimming lessons, and it just went on and automatically sent those emails from my inbox. So hopefully by sharing that story, you can see that the AI brain, at least for Guest Focus, was updated when I had that new task where I said, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if we could pull in the strategy call notes from Apple Notes? And so I found a way to do that. That is now added into our AI context brain. Hey, if you ever need to access some of those strategy call notes, you can get them from over here. Now, inside of Claude Cowork, you can also set up scheduled tasks. This is when we're empowering or setting up agents to work independently or on a schedule. So over here, you'll see scheduled, and I can go in and add a new task. Now we can give it a name, we can give it a description, we can give it a prompt. It has an example in here of a daily briefing. Hey, summarize my calendar and inbox, check my Google Calendar for today's meeting and summarize unread emails, highlight anything urgent. Now for frequency, we could select manual, meaning, hey, do this when I ask, hourly, daily, weekdays, weekly. Under more options, you can also choose which model you want to use. Opus being the most powerful, but it uses your token usage a little bit faster, and Sonnet and Haiku are other options. Honestly, once your brain is built, Sonnet will cover a lot of your day-to-day needs. But I always use Claude Opus for anytime I'm updating memory or creating a new skill or adding to the AI brain. Of course, we're going to select the folder to work in, which for us is always going to be that AI brain. Use that same folder over and over. Now, I'm pretty new to scheduling tasks, but I did come up with a couple that I know would be useful, even just updating our brain. So the YouTube index update. We do a weekly check of the Guest Focus YouTube channel, and then any new videos are automatically added back into our brain. This one here is the weekly wins cleanup, where we have a task list and it goes through and we celebrate everything we got done that week, but also takes them off of our task list. One important thing to keep in mind that when you're using Claude Cowork, scheduled tasks can only run while your computer is awake. So if you're looking to get work done overnight or have a task start so that it's ready for when you get to your computer, keep in mind that your computer needs to be open as well as Claude Cowork. Another win I wanted to share with you was this plugin that I added. So if I go to Manage Plugins, I highly recommend having a look through and adding some of the plugins that were built by Anthropic. The one that I love is Productivity, which essentially helps you manage tasks, plan your day, and build up a memory of important context about your work. I also added this Data plugin, which helps us explore data sets and generate insights faster, build visualizations and dashboards, and turn raw data into clear stories for stakeholders. But why I especially love this productivity skill is that it actually created a visual task board that I can use with Claude Cowork. The way that this works is that it's loaded inside of a Chrome browser. But basically, you'll see a Kanban view of some of the tasks that I have here. I can add subtasks if I would like. I can reorder these if I want. I can, of course, check them off and move them around. And this syncs with my Claude Cowork. Now, I'm just beginning to play with some of the coding that Claude Cowork and Claude Code and other tools can actually do for you to connect into this AI brain. That simple HTML dashboard where you've got that task list, I absolutely love because it's a nice visual way to see all of my different tasks and different projects, and I can give it feedback on what that dashboard looks like. I added a bunch of functionality, like the ability to add subtasks, the ability for me to reorder it. And basically it was just vibe coding, so to speak, right? Where I'm just describing how this dashboard could be improved. And it's really nice to use that in conjunction with Claude Cowork instead of just having a to-do list inside of a notes folder. Another tool that was just released from Claude Cowork is a tool called Dispatch. Now, Dispatch works with the Claude app on your phone, and it's essentially a way for you to communicate with your computer when you are on the go. So why this is a massive breakthrough and why this is really powerful is that AI brain that is on your desktop is not accessible via the Claude synced chat. That's one of the things that you give up, right? We build this AI brain, it's on a local desktop computer, and a tool like Claude Cowork is able to do all kinds of incredibly powerful things right from the desktop. Dispatch is incredibly powerful because now when I'm taking my daughters to swimming lessons or I'm outside, as long as my computer is on and Claude Cowork is turned on, I can give it tasks, I can give it super complex projects, I can give approvals or give responses via Dispatch into the Claude Cowork instance. This is very new. I just started playing with this over the last couple weeks, but it is really groundbreaking. It does take a shift in mentality to think like, oh, I've got a computer at home that I now need to leave on. But that AI brain and its nervous system and its memory can now be accessed from anywhere. And that is incredibly powerful. And it's basically Claude Cowork's response to some of the tools like OpenClaw and Manus and Perplexity's computer, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. The other wild functionality is that Claude Cowork can now also interact directly with your computer. It can open apps, navigate screens, fill out forms, move files around. Your laptop, of course, needs to be on and running for it to do this kind of work. But again, it's another tool that your AI agents are going to have access to. Now, I haven't activated this yet. And of course, we want to be careful when we're giving any AI tool that kind of access. But in terms of workflows, we can turn on, okay, hey, you have access to this app and not that one. All right, that was a lot, but I want to be honest about what's working and what's still pretty hard. Because I think as much as possible, we want to be honest and not just give you that highlight reel. So context really is everything. That's what's working, right? When our AI has access to our business memory, that AI brain, skills, tools, the quality difference is orders of magnitude. It is a pleasure to work on the business with Claude Cowork, with my AI brain, because the gap is smaller between what's in my head and what where I know things are and the context that I have and the context that it has. It is an incredible partner, and the ability to spin up these really complex tasks and have multiple agents working at them all at once is amazing. Those skills save real time. We haven't built out AI employees, but those skills are that first building block, right? Part of why this is so powerful is the memory that persists is real, that your AI forgets everything problem goes away the moment you start saving those updates when you move to a tool that can use these text files as a working memory. The scheduled tasks, like I said, are really powerful. We haven't dove into them a lot. Just me triggering the manual tasks and really complex tasks and just letting it work while I go away is still blowing my mind. Okay, what's still hard, or some warnings? Tokens and usage and cost. So running tasks with a lot of context isn't free. So we track our usage, we budget for it, but in all transparency, we upgraded to a Claude Max plan. So meaning we went from the $20 a month plan to $100 a month. And this gave us a huge amount of usage, and it's something to be mindful of. I would pay that 100 times over to get the kinds of efficiencies and breakthroughs and the agentic technology that's possible with Claude Cowork, but I want to be honest about it. You will very likely start hitting the limits of whatever tool that you're using. And I would say during the AI brain building process, you are using that Opus and more powerful models to help, at least I recommend using it to help set up. That's going to use your usage. So you might hit a usage limit as you're setting up your AI brain. I urge you to temporarily upgrade to a max plan to build it out. And then over time, we've been switching to Sonnet inside of Claude with other tools. You can use the cheaper models to do a lot of the day-to-day work. But we want that powerful thinking there when we're building out that brain. Tool connections through Zapier and MCP and some of the native integrations work, but keep in mind they're not always consistent. We do find that the companies are updating these plugins, and sometimes I have to turn off a connector and return it on, or something works one day but another one doesn't. And I think that's just because everything's changing so fast. And frankly, each time we have to redo that connector, it's often because it's giving us some new powers or new functionality than before, but something to be mindful of. One thing that we started doing recently, I just wanted to share a quick win, is we exported copies of our AI brain into separate Claude Cowork instances for some of our key team members. For example, Abby, who's on our marketing team, I was able to just talk to my AI brain and said, hey, I want to give a lot of this context that we've been building to the head of our marketing. And it was able to go through each bit of the memory. We obviously pulled out a lot of the personal context. It pulled out information that wasn't really going to be relevant to her tasks. But then it put it into a zip file. It created an AI prompt and some instructions for Abby, and I simply sent it to her over Slack. And inside of her Claude Cowork folder, she was able to very quickly get all of that AI context that I'd spent the last couple months building. Now, again, as you can imagine, because these are two different instances, they will get out of sync. But I'm okay with that on some level because Abby is going to be updating her processes. She's going to be updating her skill files in lots of different ways that are going to be unique and specific to her job. And of course, mine are going somewhere else. And of course, I can always ask her to do an export coming back the other way. Now, in time, we're going to see the new tools and technologies and team plans that are probably going to allow you to share this type of AI context. I just wanted to make you aware of that it's very possible to export this AI brain to partners to key members of your staff and encourage them to build on the context that you've already put together. Okay, so we focused a lot on Claude Cowork in this series, but there are a few other tools that plug into how we work, and I wanted to mention them because they might be useful for you, and I want to show you how we use them in conjunction with our AI brain. Notebook LLM from Google. This is a fantastic tool that's improving all the time. One of the ways that we loved using it is that because it's owned by Google, it can pull in YouTube transcripts directly. And we use this often for research or just candidly bringing together lots of different information and then getting really creative outputs. So a simple example is, I mentioned in a previous video, I built out an advisory board for Guest Focus with some of the folks that I really respect and entrepreneurial influencers. So one of the ways I did that is I went and got it to research what are their most popular podcast episodes. And I wanted to get me the YouTube URL, right? And then I put that into Notebook LLM. And so we had some 40 or 50 different podcasts. I didn't have time to go through and listen to it all. It was able to pull all those transcripts and create a briefing or an outline of some of the key ideas, languages. Obviously, as you can imagine, getting the transcripts from all of those different podcast episodes, there'd be a lot of repetition. There'd be a lot of probably ad reads and useless information. And Notebook LLM was really incredibly powerful at creating a brief. You can create visualizations. Famously, you can turn it into a podcast if you just want to go for a walk and have two people talk you through that information. If you haven't checked out Notebook LLM, especially recently, there's some really incredible things that you can do with it. And we love, as you can see, the output from Notebook LLM, we migrate into our AI brain a lot. I do want to give a shout out to ChatGPT for their voice mode. If you want to have a really fluid and spoken conversation with an AI intelligence, ChatGPT's voice mode is really impressive. And we use it for brainstorming. I use it when talking through ideas, when typing feels too slow, or candidly, a lot of the time when I'm driving somewhere, or I just want to get out from behind my desk. And this was one of the advantages I mentioned before of having your AI brain sync into a Google Drive folder, is that I have a project in ChatGPT, and in the instructions of the project, I say, hey, here's my AI brain. All those markdown files, they live here in this Google Drive folder. And so as Claude Cowork updates all of that information and context in my task list, that gets synced into a ChatGPT project. Now, why that's cool is then I can have a dialogue with ChatGPT with all of the context of my business there. I remember one time talking through the quarterly priorities, right? And it had a lot of the context. And so it was a much better voice experience than presently with Anthropic and Claude. It just hasn't been a focus for them. So I do want to give an honorable shout out. And whether or not you sync into a Google Drive folder, that may not be necessary. You can pull that, just your text files in, and upload that into a project as a static thing, and then just have a voice dialogue with it. That works as well. I've mentioned it before, but Google's image and video generation tools are really spectacular. Nano Banana for some of the most realistic images, Veo 3 or Veo 4, whatever we're on now, it is really a leaps and bounds better than others. And so you can connect in your AI brain and connectors to some of these other AI tools. It's a little beyond the scope of what we want to cover in this series, but keep in mind, just because I'm using one particular large language model doesn't mean I can't connect in to these other skills, other large language models who might be able to do something different a lot better. So Google, we're often doing that for video and image files, but things like 11 Labs have the ability to generate voices more, just really impressively. And so we use 11 Labs and a connection into our AI brain anytime we want to create something with audio. One last thing on connections before we look ahead. Earlier in this series, we covered how MCP connections let your AI talk to different tools through a translator, the Zapier bridge being one example, into CRM or booking software. That's useful, but that MCP ecosystem is growing fast, and new connections are showing up that give your AI entirely new capabilities that aren't just based on one particular software company or CRM tool. Whereas now, through vibe coding and describing what we want, and even getting it to go out and do research for you, your AI brain can create new connectors into all kinds of incredible tools that aren't necessarily tied to some of the traditional software or SaaS companies, service as a software companies that we're used to. So the sky really is the limit here. We can have connectors that go into design tools, so your AI can create and iterate on graphics or videos or slideshows or do video editing for you. There's even MCPs for making phone calls or sending SMS messages. The sky really is the limit. Okay, let's zoom out for a minute because the pace of change here is really staggering, and I do think that's worth talking about. You may remember this video generation clip of Will Smith eating spaghetti. Yeah, that's the stuff of nightmares. But I just want to show you what that same sort of clip looks like today. Basically, there hasn't been that much time between what is essentially the stuff of nightmares to something that's pretty indistinguishable from reality. And that acceleration hasn't slowed at all. Right now, there are a lot of companies building towards the same thing. An AI that doesn't just answer questions, but actually runs part of your business. OpenClaw is an open source AI agent that went from zero to the most popular project on GitHub in about 4 months. OpenClaw can control your computer, run tasks, manage files. It's free and incredibly capable. It's also had real security concerns early on, but no question, OpenClaw really sort of blew the lid off of what happens when you give these modern AI and large language models the ability to go out and act on your behalf. Claude Cowork is, in my view, the safer and less technical alternative to get a lot of the benefits of OpenClaw. But like we said, this space is moving fast. Already, NVIDIA responded with NemoClaw, which was announced even just a couple of months ago, and it's a security layer that wraps around OpenClaw to help make this open source agent technology all that much more secure. It sandboxes, it has privacy controls and policy enforcement. It lets enterprises run these independent agents safely, many times locally on your own hardware. And while OpenClaw is going to be another video and beyond the scope of this series right now, just know that it's out there and that this technology is moving fast. Manus, which was acquired by Meta, is building similar capabilities as a desktop app. And Perplexity Computer has their own version. ChatGPT and Gemini are going to be coming with these agentic technologies as well. So what we really wanted to emphasize throughout this series and what we've been building is not so much dependent on the tool you use. We recommended Claude Cowork as the place that you can make a massive leap forward to getting through all of these layers. But hopefully you now can appreciate that all of these different tools, whether it's OpenClaw, whether it's Manus, Computer, they're all using this same type of markdown file system, right? So we've got the AI brain, we've got our nervous system, we've got skills that are repetitive tasks, we've got plugins where we're starting to bring those different skills together into more of an AI employee. And we've got this agentic technology that can act on a schedule or can act independently with really complex goals. And of course, the true power is it's not just one agent, but we can spin up all kinds of different agents doing multiple things simultaneously with potentially different specializations. Like we said, we wanted to teach you how to drive, even if down the road, or even right now, you want to use a different car. So here's what I think happens next. Within a year, most of these capabilities are probably going to be standard across all of the major platforms. Running tasks on a schedule, controlling a computer, working remotely from your phone, multiple agents, multiple AI employees. That's why we built this series around principles instead of features. Features are going to change every month, but those underlying principles won't. If you move forward with building out your AI brain and nervous system, the context, the memory, the skills, and the connections, be ready to plug into whatever platform leads the pack next year, or maybe one that is the most cost effective. The ones who are still playing ping pong with those chats, the ones that are still getting frustrated are going to be the ones who fall behind. Like I said, we really don't want to pretend to have all of the answers, but we certainly want to share what's working now, what's got us excited, and what's got the members of our coaching programs excited as well. If you want to tag along, by all means, you can join us in one of our programs. You can book a free strategy call with myself or someone on the team at guestfocus.com/book a call. If you'd like to be involved in the AI community that we've built around tour and activity operators, you can head over to guestfocus.com/AI. And the Tour Business AI Lab is a free community where we want to share some of these best practices. And I know that some of you are watching this right now are probably even more advanced than some of what we've been sharing here today. Before you go, let me know in the comments down below, have you been playing around with any of these other tools besides Claude Cowork? For example, OpenClaw or Perplexity Computer, or whatever tool is out and active right now. We'd love to hear and why you might prefer using that one versus another. If you got some value from this series, it would mean the world to me if you'd share it with a friend or colleague here in the industry. Thank you so much for tuning in, and lots more to come. See you soon.